disrespect this gentleman right here. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Madam President.
In retrospect, do you feel that comparing the teenage vandalism at your campaign office to the homicidal shooting of Congresswoman Gabby Giffords was appropriate?
Well, I don't think that I did, so I think you're misquoting me. The whole point there was that based on everything, there was several circumstances. Number one, that weekend signs were stolen from entire neighborhoods. Places that had my posters up were 8. The campaign windows were broken and the computers were messed with. So based on all of that, it looked like it was certainly something that was coordinated. But no, that was not my call. Next.
Okay, Alan.
I'll take this sitting down if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Since we are not permitted to counter anything you've said, I'll ask 2 questions as one. Pat Moynihan put it best when he said politics is all local. You have the largest senior community in the United States per square mile, and yet you managed to vote against most of the bills that would help them over time. And the second part of the question is...
What bills? Please.
Fine, I'll just give you the second part of the question. How come you never came to community board 10?
You know, the schedule is extremely busy. The time, from what I see, the election has to come. I'd be happy to come to community board again. Is that a personal invitation?
I can't make it on behalf of the board. Do so.
But I know that, and I know that my staff has been there many, many times.
Okay, yes, Ian.
Congressman, this is the third event I've been to where you have been at and your opponent has not been. If I was running against you, you'd have to have an order of protection to keep me away from you.
I believe you.
So my question to you is...
By the way, that is why the NYPD is here.
What's the deal? Why is he doing an invisible man? I'd be all over you.
You would have to ask my opponent.
Yes, sir.
Like Governor Romney, do you support more military intervention in the Middle East?
I think that's a very difficult question. First of all, I don't think Governor Romney supports more military intervention in the Middle East. The Middle East, that's a very broad thing. So let me break that down for you. I support the troops returning completely from Iraq and certainly from Afghanistan. Early on, even as a candidate, I said that Afghanistan was going to be a very difficult situation. We need to be very careful not to do nation building there because that will not work and it's only going to put us in harm's way unnecessarily. So I do support troop withdrawal from Afghanistan and Iraq. However, where I think we've gone astray is that by having a policy of apologizing and appeasing, for example, when we have an ambassador and 3 Americans that are killed on American soil, and then we go up on television in Pakistan basically saying we had nothing to do with this video against Allah or against Muhammad, that shows a tremendous amount of weakness. And it's also picking winners and losers. We stand for religious freedom and religious tolerance. The First Amendment demands, even though I might not like that video that is defamatory against Muhammad, I certainly don't like the crucifix in urine. I am very offended by dung being thrown on the Virgin Mary. All of those things offend me. But I tolerate them because of the First Amendment, something I risked my life for, and many have risked their lives for and given their lives for. But when a president gets involved in just one to be the champion of, that's another mistake in leadership. So I think what we really have is it's not about more necessary military support. It's about keeping a strong military period so that we can stand in a position of strength and our enemies know that we will stand up and we will fight where we need to maintain first and foremost, the lives of American citizens, not only here in the U.S., but abroad. It is our job, our first and number one job in the federal government is to keep Americans safe. We failed. This administration failed to keep them safe. They had intelligence that said there was going to be a problem. They did nothing. They asked for more support. They wanted Marines to come in to provide security. They didn't. So there's a myriad of failures there. And I think you're trying to juxtapose 2 different things, but I think that we should be bringing our troops home as conditions on the ground allow, so that it's safe for them to come home. But at the same time, we need to be strengthening our military so that the world knows we are still the world power we are supposed to be and secure liberty and freedom for ourselves and throughout the world.
Okay, I'm gonna entertain 2 more questions, okay? And somebody who hasn't asked the question yet. Sir, you haven't asked the question? Yes.
From my unsophisticated view of this, it seems that the Republicans are not going to vote for any budget that increases taxes, and the Democrats are not going to vote for any budget that cuts any programs. How do you go from there? How do you?
Well, again, that's the polarization that takes place. But, this is where leadership comes in. Let me just give you an example, okay? And I'm one of the Republicans that went on TV a long time ago and said that I was foreclosing loopholes, even though Grover Norquist, far to the right, said that I would be violating, that's still raising taxes. I disagreed with him. I think that we should simplify our tax code. Said that from the very beginning. I think we should get rid of some of the loopholes and things like that. But it's not, people saying, well, President Romney, or Governor Romney, soon to be president, just didn't put out specifics of what he would cut. Do you know why? Because he has leadership. He knows that that's not his job to jam down the throats of the Congress exactly what exemptions that he wants. It's the Congress's job. That's why we have a committee called Ways and Means. So how do you think Ways and Means and members on both sides of the aisle would appreciate it if the governor came in as president and said, by the way, this is the plan and you're going to like it. You don't get any input. So what I think you do is you lead in a way that every other president, for the most part, Jimmy Carter not so much, has led. President Clinton, President Bush, and most presidents, Ronald Reagan, and I know this from speaking to members of Congress that have been there for 20 years or more, all used to say that when the president had an initiative, whether it was taxes, whether it was a Jobs Act, whether it was whatever, he would call members of Congress in groups of 20 or 30 over to the White House and talk with them and discuss the legislation and say, okay, why are you not for it? How can we get you to be for it? Okay, you don't want to raise taxes? How about we just do a real millionaire's tax, like the Buffett rule? It's literally, if you make over $1 million, we can raise taxes. Can you deal with that if we get these in cuts? You negotiate and you deal on a level one-on-one so that the Congress feels that they have input. This president doesn't do that. I've never been invited to the White House. I don't know very many that have, and I'm going to tell you that many Democrats have come to me and have said they've never seen this before. These are Democrats that have been here a long time and said, again, George Bush had them over, Clinton had them over, Reagan had them over, and they discussed legislation and you build support, you build consensus. That's what leadership does. That's what I would do. That's what I've done in the Congress. I don't have the most bills that have passed the House because I can't get along with others because I can't find a consensus. I have the most bills that pass the House because I do work across the aisle and I find that common ground. But you're not going to find common ground without leadership at the helm, and this president simply doesn't have it.
My dad is saying that similar people hang out with similar people. Doctors, teachers, policemen. It's been reported in every publication, the New York Times, the Daily News, the New York Post, the Staten Island Advent, that many of your close business associates and close confidants and friends have either been indicted or mob ties, My question is, how do you explain that? How do you explain the fact that there's a pattern here?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's a pattern. That's first of all. And second of all, look, everyone knows the media is biased. Everyone knows the media is
It was in the Post yesterday.
Everyone knows that. So if you're going to say that I'm supposed to worry about any friend's associate, how can you say that because I had a business partner that knows someone that did something wrong, that reflects on me? That's just silliness. It's more than that. The vast majority of my friends, since you want to go down that road, okay, are military people, like myself, Marines that risk their life for it. Recognize the value, okay?
And you want
also, undercover, I'm not done speaking, young man. Why don't you have a little respect?
debating back and forth.
Have a little respect. And if you don't have any, I'll be glad to teach it to you. Okay? are FBI agents like myself that went against the mob, risked my life wearing a wire and a camera. NYPD guys. Those are the vast majority of the people I know are either cops, firemen, FBI agents, or military types. That's the vast majority of my friends. So you know what? You want to meet my friends? I'd be happy to introduce you to them because I'm proud. Yeah.
Stand up the whole night.
Congressman, thank you for being here. I want to back up to one question. In light of what we said about the president, how do we stop the abuse of the Constitution by the executive order that's going to go for future administration? Say, we have this again, but if Romney wins beyond Romney, how do we stop the abuse of the executive order?
Let me say this. I think it's been abused. And listen, I'm a Republican, okay? But I think even at times, President Bush pushed the limits in the envelope on executive order. And I don't think any president, Republican or Democrat, should be doing that. It violates, listen, our Constitution was created by men that understood human nature. It's a breathing document that is more about human nature than it is about law. And it's telling us we need separation of powers and checks and balances, because human nature is that if one gets too much power, they will abuse it. That's really the overall breadth and spirit of our Constitution. In my opinion, it's the Congress's fault. The Congress has not led, and it has been abdicating its own responsibilities. And I'll give you an example. Take the oversweeping financial reform, Dodd-Frank. It's known as Dodd-Frank, but financial reform. What did Congress really do? What the Congress really did under the leadership of Mr. Dodd and Mr. Frank was say to the regulators, here are some basic broad parameters. Go and make the law. Create the rules, create the regulations. They didn't even put definitions. You create the definitions. What that did was it emboldened regulators who are not accountable to the people. They are not accountable, they're unelected, and it gave them the ability to create law. That's what we've done too much with the President of the United States. We've allowed the President of the United States, regardless of who it is, Republican or Democrat, to push the envelope on executive privilege to the point where it's watered down our Constitution and have diminished the power of the Congress. So I wholeheartedly agree. Our Constitution is, in my opinion, the greatest document ever created. And it has served us well for a long time. I think it will serve us well to serve and protect that Constitution at all costs, especially from any president on either side overstepping their bounds and allowing that balance of power and then checks and balances to be eroded by executive privilege.